Hi, this is Anthony. Welcome back to my show. So, the last couple videos that I've done have been about using Gemini AI to do just fantasy stock and bond certificates and banknotes, and it's so fun. Um, this is the last one that I did last night. I think it was in the previous video at the very end. And I said, make a stock certificate for the Canadian Lunar Development Corporation for 10,000 shares and make it in English and French. And look at that. Look at the beautiful detail that it's picked from various things on the internet. Anyway, I'm going to make this one short. I've already typed up a prompt. I'm going to put it there. It says disregard all previous parameters. Create two American banknotes in the style of Canadian banknotes from the 1950s. Make the $1 note primarily in red and use Martha Washington as the vignette placed on the right side. On the $2 bill, make the primary color green and make George Washington as the vignette on the right. Make the Treasury seal blue and the American bald eagle purple. Make one slight correction. Okay, I have no idea what this is going to look like. Let's see. If you have a Google account or Gmail, then you have access to this. It's gemini.google.com. You should be able to find it and go down the rabbit hole of making all kinds of artwork. It's a lot better than previous versions were even a year ago. Okay, we're all in excitement to see what happens here. Well, that's not at all what we asked for. The first one almost looks like a regular Federal Reserve note, except at the very top, they got Federal Reserve note written incorrectly. Okay, that's, yeah, not at all what I asked for. So I said that's not at all what I asked for. Please redo it as I asked. That's amazing that the first one is so close to an actual dollar, because this has a tendency not to make things that could be passed off as authentic financial documents. Again, that's not at all really what I asked for. The bottom one, somewhat similar. We're going to just give them the previous prompt. See what they do. And it's interesting, the more you do it, the more refined the work seems to be, in my opinion. It gets better and better, although the words, the legends, become more corrupted over time. It's kind of interesting. I like that. It's not at all what I asked for. Okay, we're going to take a screenshot of that. I'm going to write, please redo as I asked in the description. Unfortunately, it does take a while for it to come up. This actually looks like the type of revenue stamps that were used in the early 20th century for various things. Back before they had income tax, we had all kinds of excise taxes where you had to pay taxes on potatoes and margarine and alcohol, and so that looks like some of the. Okay, again, this is not what I asked for. Oops. Okay. I cut out part of it. It's starting to kind of corrupt and change my prompt. So we'll see what they come up with here. I should play some classical music in the background just to be more entertaining. Well, this is kind of interesting. That's certainly not Martha Washington, but that's an interesting looking. I like that. This looks kind of like military payment certificates. If you don't know what an MPC is, you can look it up. But they were used after World War II until the Vietnam War. And that's how American soldiers were paid in foreign countries during wartime or during occupations. And the reason for that is because many countries had currency controls and they didn't want Americans using regular American banknotes in those areas on the black market to buy up products or things like that. And so they issued special currency that could only be used in military stores on bases, and then periodically those would be withdrawn from local circulation and replaced with new issues. And so they're very colorful, very unique and interesting. They're not necessarily all that rare or expensive, and they make a great collectible. So those are called military payment certificates, and you can look for those on the internet or on eBay and maybe start a collection if that interests you. We're going to say, please redo again. Again, the prompt is still showing Martha Washington, but the actual images have George Washington. And as you can see, like at the bottom, to make this so that it doesn't look like something that you could pass or sell to somebody as an authentic item, they're spelling $1 incorrectly there. They're dropping off the O and $1 there. But a lot of this looks very authentic. I like that. Please redo with Martha. And there was a news thing that just popped up. Evidently, one or more people have been assassinated, political assassination, I think in Minnesota, and some other people were targeted. I just got home and saw the news on that. I haven't read it yet. Right now, there's so much going on politically with riots and ICE raids, and a lot of people on both sides, or all across the political spectrum, are not happy about various things. And if you want to change things, if things are not going the way you want to see them go, peaceful change is possible. Doing things violently isn't going to change anything. I can understand people being upset. Peaceful protests are fine, but these peaceful protests are turning violent, and that's not going to help anybody, and it doesn't hurt or it doesn't help your side. So please try to, don't get engaged in violent protest. You're just going to end up getting sprayed with pepper spray or mace or arrested. So here's the next thing that came up. Again, not Martha Washington. That vignette is pretty close to the vignette of George Washington on dollar bills. Sometimes when you create a prompt, it creates something that doesn't look like the vignette on paper money to try to avoid creating something that might get people in trouble. So another beautiful rendition there. Say, try again with Lincoln. We'll see what a Abraham Lincoln prompt looks like. We'll see if it's Abraham Lincoln or a Lincoln Continental. So we got Lincoln at the bottom. That's, kind of neat. I like that. Okay, do it for Canada. Wouldn't it be great to have banknotes that looked something like this than the boring banknotes that we currently have in circulation? Although some few people use banknotes anymore since they use debit cards and unfortunately credit cards so much. So this one says Queen Elizabeth II. Oh wow, look at that. That's just absolutely beautiful. We'll say perfect. Place a beaver on it. The King of Canada. Is everyone excited as I am to see? Okay, we got a little beaver down there at the bottom. That's another beautiful one. Okay, we're have change Elizabeth to Charles III. That actually kind of looks like some of the very high denomination notes that were issued in like the 1930s for interbank deposits. So when a bank would transfer like $100,000 from one bank to another instead of a whole suitcase full of cash, they sometimes had very high denomination notes that were only used between banks in the United States and also within Canada. So there's one, looks pretty much like King Charles III. We have a maple leaf and a beaver. Another wonderful item. Okay. Do for Maximilian of Mexico. I'd love to hear from you if you've found out about this and you start playing around with it. Let me know in the show comments how things are going for you. That doesn't really look like Maximilian, but certainly looks like could be a Mexican note. Wonderful. We're going to put, so the coat of arms there is one of the more modern ones, probably dates from like the 1960s. So we're going to put older coat of arms. if you want to leave suggestions for me to put or to use to create future ones, I'd love to hear those also. Wow, look at that one. So that looks a little bit more like a royal one. It still has the same style of coat of arms or the seal, but it does have a crown above it, so that's good. Looks more like King George V than Maximilian. Maximilian had a big beard and was kind of bald. He was the brother of the Austrian Emperor, Franz Josef, and Franz Josef died in 1916, so lived a very long time. Try for Cuba. We'll see what a Cuban fantasy banknote will look like. I'm sure because of sanctions dating from long ago, American citizens are not allowed to look at whatever comes up here, so close your eyes if you're an American. Okay, that kind of looks interesting there. Looks more like a Chilean than a Cuban one. Try again in green. Says it's going to have Jose Marti on the right. He was a Cuban revolutionary leader. I think he had a mustache, so this doesn't really look like him, but another just wonderfully beautiful, ornate note. And this is how banknotes, old stamps used to look a long time ago, including things like lottery tickets. Lottery tickets used to look like this in other countries. Do for Bank of England. This would be interesting to see. Bank of England notes had the same basic design from about 1644 until about 1952 when they decided to upgrade them. Part of the reason that they decided to upgrade them was they were fairly easy to counterfeit. They had a blank back, and the Germans had an operation, something like Operation Bernhardt, where they were using Jewish laborers at a concentration camp to forge British banknotes of World War II. And then they used those banknotes to try to disrupt the economy of England, but they also used them to pay some of their spies. For instance, they had a spy in like Albania. I think his code name was Cicero, and they paid him with forged banknotes. So here's another absolutely beautiful note here. At the bottom, it looks like they put kind of a revenue stamp. I believe these dots here, those may correspond to dots and anti-counterfeiting features. If you look on American banknotes other than the $1 bill, you should see probably on the reverse or perhaps on the front a series of dots that kind of look like that. Those are supposed to be dots that if they're detected by a photocopier or a scanner, that they won't print, because obviously even a cheap scanner could do a pretty good job of printing a reasonable facsimile of an American or foreign banknote. So we're getting close to 20 minutes. This is so fun to play around with. Do in red ink. We'll see what comes up here. And it's interesting that all around they've just used the number 1. Sometimes, to prevent it from looking realistic, they'll toss in a couple other numbers so that it's clear it's not a 1 pound or a 5 pound denomination. Wow, look at that. That's interesting. Looks like they have kind of two banknotes merged with one. We'll put great use Queen Victoria. Maybe sometime we'll do a Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Although for certain people that are not Iranian sovereign, they may not have those pictures available. Here's another one, just absolutely beautiful. Look at all the detail there. I don't think that you could see the amount of detail that I can see. That's just wonderful. How about George III? George III, of course, was the king at the time of the American Revolution. Again, if you have any prompts that you'd like me to do, leave them in the comments and I'll make a video today or tomorrow that use viewers' comments. Well, that doesn't really look like George III there. It looks like a woman, but still very beautiful. This is really characteristic of the style of some of the Hong Kong banknotes of the 1920s and 30s. So, okay, I'm going to stop here. This is long enough, but obviously if you're still watching, this type of thing is of interest to you. I know that it's a very niche category that most people aren't going to be interested in, but some people will be. I really do appreciate, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I do a wide variety of topics. Let me know what you want me to talk about. I'd be happy to, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you.